Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another CH4B Expert Insights webinar. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Jodie Goodchild from Jodie Goodchild Limited, who helps small businesses and SMEs grow and scale on LinkedIn by showing us exactly how to use the free version of LinkedIn to leverage your lead generation. Just for those of you that might be new to CH4B, I'll give you a quick introduction to us, and then I will hand it over to Jodie to run us through everything LinkedIn wise. So we are CH4B, Central Hub for Business, and we're a membership organisation for business owners based in the UK to help you grow and scale sustainably. And one of the four quadrants that we focus on is helping you mitigate supply risk through our expert partner network, for which Jodie is one of those. So we will dive in, and if there is anything else that you need support with, you can reach out to us at the end of the webinar and we can set you up with a one-to-one with Jodie for LinkedIn as well. So without further ado, I will hand over to you, Jodie, because that's what everyone is here for, and you can give everyone a bit of an intro to you before we dive in.
Thank you. Yeah, before I start, I'll just do a testimonial for you guys actually. So I've known the CH4B team now for, I think literally since I started my business. I think Neil was one of the first people I actually ever had some networking with, and we've kind of been connected ever since. And I cannot recommend CH4B enough. If you're a small business and you need support like these guys, are the ones that you need to speak to, and they're such an awesome down-to-earth team, so please reach out to them. But just a personal testimonial from me there, because I've used you guys and I think you're awesome. So yes, hello, if you've not met me before online, as Kimberly said, I'm Jodie, and I've been running my own business now for around 2.5 years. I think I've just passed the 2.5 year point. This is a picture of me here doing a seminar, of which actually one of the CH4B team was in the front row for. Connie was there for this one. My background is sales and marketing. So I'd spent or have spent the last 20 years in the world of sales and marketing. I started my career as a cold caller for my sins, which is actually how Neil and I kind of had some common ground when we first started chatting about our days as cold callers. And I had a really super successful career in sales and marketing. I ran a 70-person strong operations department of outbound lead generators, and their job was to work with kind of one-man bands, small to medium businesses and enterprise companies, and to generate leads for them via cold calling, warm calling, email campaigns and direct mail. And it worked absolutely brilliantly. We'd make 20 calls every hour of the day, so about 180 calls every single day, and we knew in a day we'd get 4 or 5 appointments for customers, which is awesome. I absolutely loved my time in my corporate role. However, I felt like something was missing for me, and I was kind of in a bit of a Groundhog Day and felt like I needed to do something else and that I could make more of an impact. So I took the really difficult decision to leave my safe corporate job and to start my own company and try and figure that out. And this part of the story is really important because it kind of comes into how I got into LinkedIn, if you like, and why I'm here today. And that, we all know, and a lot of you probably do marketing in this webinar today, and we know how expensive it is. We know that you need to do cold calling, emailing, or direct mail in order to generate opportunities, because lead generation is the lifeblood of any business. When I started, I knew that I needed to do some cold calling, or I needed to find some money to do some other marketing, whether that's email marketing or some direct mail or something. However, just because I'm good at cold calling doesn't mean I wanted to do it. And I'd had my time and I didn't want to do it anymore. And that was when I took to LinkedIn. And that is now 2.5 years ago. And I used LinkedIn as my sole marketing channel in the first 2 years of my business. And I grew in year 2 by 58%, all organically, by using LinkedIn and just posting content. And it worked for me. And it was one thing saying it worked for me. However, I now run a community where I have 85, I think, members, and they're seeing the same results. So to give you some ideas and some numbers behind what I'm going to talk to you about today, and the kind of facts behind it working, in the last 7 weeks, members in my community have had a total of 112 client opportunities come to them. So we focus on attracting clients and not chasing them, just by posting authentic content on LinkedIn. Now that is pretty good going. And it was one thing me saying it worked for me, but it's another now seeing it actually happen. So for every 6.5 LinkedIn posts that we share as a community, we generate 1 new client opportunity without having to chase or do any cold calling or spending any money, apart from being a member of my community, obviously. So that's a bit about me as an intro. And just to go back, the session that we're going to run is called Grow on LinkedIn for Free, which I'm really passionate about. I'm not connected to LinkedIn in any way, so I work for myself. I don't work for LinkedIn. They probably wouldn't be a fan, I guess, if they knew that I was telling people to use their platform for free, but that's what I do. So
To say, I'll just interject very, very quickly.
Do it, please. Sorry.
Because you had it on the screen there, but you also didn't mention it, of your fabulous book that you launched not long ago, that sits, I just reach for it, it sits next to my desk, and I go through some of those activities every couple of weeks when I've got time, and there's some really, really useful content in there. If you're completely new to LinkedIn, it's worth it.
Thanks. I did forget to mention that, so thank you. Yeah, it's a great book, and it's very simple. It's not pages and pages. I wanted something that people could pick up, look at, do a little bit of work and put it down. I've had some really good feedback on that, so good reminder.
It's been so well used, it's got a bit of my coffee on it.
Everyone that I meet, like, kind of almost carry them in my community as well, like a little bit of a Bible. They carry them around with their scribbles in. Yeah, good mentioning. So I'd like to start here, which is by talking about a guy called Daniel Priestley. I don't know if you've heard of him, Kimberly, but he's somebody that is absolutely awesome. I'd recommend everyone on this webinar to go and find Daniel and have a look at him. He has a number of successful businesses, one of which is called Score App, which you might have heard of. So it's something you can use as like a bit of a lead magnet, where you can enter some details in and say, you know, for example, I could use it and say, fill out this form to get a rating for your LinkedIn profile, and it'll give you some tips and things. He shares so much free information to help businesses of all sizes, and I genuinely believe that, you know, reading his information and learning from Daniel and his book Key Person of Influence has been one of the reasons why I've been so successful in business. I'm a huge fan. The reason I've got this quote on the screen is that when I meet people, primarily kind of SMEs and kind of solo businesses, and I start talking to them about their business, is the first thing they'll say to me is they feel like they have a lead generation problem. So they'll say, we've got a lead generation problem. We're starting to worry that our product or our service might not be good enough because nobody seems to want it. The actual problem they've got is a visibility problem. It's not that, 9 times out of 10, they've got an absolutely amazing product and an amazing service, but the challenge that they've got is that they're not visible enough. And a big mistake that I see some of these companies make, there's two. One is that they have no lead generation plan whatsoever. And the other one is that their lead generation plan is they go to one networking event, maybe once a week or once a month, and they give a 60-second pitch to people in the room, but that pitch will be about them. So, this is me, I've been in this sector and I do this and I do that, rather than kind of almost like an elevator pitch, which is sharing why people would want to work with them. And I love this quote from Daniel, and he's got some really good stuff. And I'll talk about something else in a moment, actually, to do with Daniel. So in terms of LinkedIn, and if it's all right, Kimberly, I'm going to get you involved in this conversation, but don't panic. It's not anything you're not going to know the answers to. You're going to know the answer to it, so don't worry. It's a conversation I have with people all the time where we talk about what is LinkedIn really, because I think there's two types of camps of people. There's people that love it and there's people that hate it, and it's a bit like Marmite. So if I was to say to you what is LinkedIn to you, what would your answer be?
What is LinkedIn really? I suppose the fundamentals is a social networking site for employees within business to connect with one another, but that's sort of evolved quite a lot over the years.
It has.
But you're nodding, so I'm not too far off piece.
No, you're bang on. You're absolutely bang on. Ultimately, LinkedIn is a B2B social media platform. So a lot of us, like me included, I've got Facebook and I have Instagram. The difference is that LinkedIn is more of a business social media platform. So we have Facebook and Instagram, where we might share things like, I'm a big fan of like funny animal videos and things like that. Not really what you do on LinkedIn. It's more about what you're doing from a social perspective in your business. But something that really interests people is when LinkedIn actually saw the shift themselves. So if you think back to, I hate to bring it up, but COVID, which was a really tough time for a lot of us. We were all in the office. We were all in the office Monday to Friday, and we had our work family, and we had people that we were really close to that we'd really enjoy being around when we're at work. And whilst we'd get loads of work done, we'd also love chatting to our colleagues in the office. when COVID happened, obviously we all couldn't be in the office anymore, and the world completely changed over that kind of period of COVID. And interestingly, LinkedIn's editor-in-chief, I think his job title is, a guy called Dan Roth, said that their platform usage went up by 46% in COVID. And it makes sense because people, had those work colleagues that they wanted to still keep in touch with, but what they didn't feel comfortable with is necessarily connecting with those work colleagues on Instagram and Facebook. But what they did feel comfortable with is connecting with them on LinkedIn. And that was when LinkedIn went from a platform where we just have our digital CV to a platform where, we do business, and there's so much business that gets done on there every single day. And it's now the largest B2B social media platform in the world. And I've got some numbers that I'm going to talk us through. So LinkedIn is in 200 different countries. Which not a lot of people know. So it means that, you've removed that barrier. Historically, you'd only be able to do business with people that were almost in your country. But with social media and LinkedIn now, it allows you to not only do business with people in your country, but also to be able to connect and do business with people in different countries. There's a total of 65 million companies on LinkedIn and 134.5 million active every single day, which is absolutely crazy. And when I say active, I don't necessarily mean post, and I'm going to come back to that one in a second. And people say to me when I go through those stats, they're like, well, that's great, but what about the UK? So you can see on the screen here, in the UK, there's 44.4 million people on LinkedIn, which is a huge number. Where I come from, I don't know if anyone else that's watching is from down south. If you are, let me know. I'm from Portsmouth, and in Portsmouth we have 203,000 people, and we're only a small island on LinkedIn, which is crazy. And our neighbouring city, Southampton, have another 221,000, which again is just absolute madness. So here's the numbers: over 1 billion in total, 44.9 million in the UK. 203,000 in Portsmouth and 221,000 in Southampton. So you can start to think about the numbers and what they look like in terms of wherever you're located. Now, what absolutely gobsmacks me on this is that whenever I share these numbers, I always check them. Now, the last time I checked these numbers, they'd gone up, just the UK, by 4.7 million. And that should show you that LinkedIn is not something that you can think about, yeah, that will be something that we'll do. It's probably going to be in our 2026 plans, if at all. LinkedIn is something you need to be doing right now because the growth is monumental. We've moved away from that, industrial revolution, and we are now smack bang in the middle of a digital revolution now, where business is being done every single day digitally. And I get really excited by it, but some people get really scared about it. But that should give you the kind of shock factor of how much this is growing. Now, that 4.7 million, that also has been since October to now. So November, December, January, February, March, pretty much 5 months. So it's pretty much nearly going up 1 million every single month, which is just absolutely crazy. If I was to ask you how many of those people you think are posting, what percentage would you say?
I'd say it's relatively low, maybe 25%.
It's a good guess. It's actually somewhere between 3 and 4%.
Wow.
So that is where the opportunity comes in for people that are on this webinar, because if you can put yourself into that 3 to 4%, then you are already, massively ahead of the game, because there's a video going on the screen and it's somebody just scrolling. And when I meet people, they quite often tell me that they doom scroll. Have you heard that phrase? Yeah, like I doom scroll, and they say they doom scroll on LinkedIn. Well, actually, what they're doing on LinkedIn is decision makers are actually information gathering, and they don't realize they're doing that because they call it doom scrolling. But what happens if you're in that 1% is, say, I'll use an example. I've got a lady called Bev in my community who's a HR consultant. You can guarantee every day of the week you'll see Bev talking about something to do with HR. Now, Bev gets so much business from LinkedIn because she's in the feed every single day, and all it takes is a business owner that's having a challenge within their business where they need HR support for them to remember that they've seen Bev and reach out. This is the thing. If you don't take anything else away from this webinar today, please take that one nugget away, because there's such a great opportunity for you here. And I'm going to show you some things that you can do to kind of help with that, because there's a few changes that you can make literally today that are really super simple that will help you start seeing actions from LinkedIn. So I want to talk about profiles. So this video is what I do when I see a profile like this on LinkedIn, because there's many of them around. And I hope that nobody on this webinar is one of these many. But if you are, no shade, don't worry, it's all good. Now, what do you think when you look at Dave's LinkedIn profile, Kimberly? Like what jumps out to you when you look at that?
That there's very little information or anything that's relatable within there. So it's not a profile I would engage with if I was looking for business or looking to connect with somebody.
Yeah. And if this person messaged you, how would that make you feel?
Perhaps a little uneasy because the intention behind the profile isn't clear.
Yeah, it's almost, we don't know. We know I've hidden the surname because this is a real profile. We know that the person's name's Dave, but we can't see their face, which makes us feel uneasy. We don't even know where they work. We can only see that they're in Hampshire. So if this person reaches out to you and tries to speak with you, straight away it's going to make you feel really uneasy, because we connect with people when we can see their faces. We can see that he's got 260 connections as well. So when we think about those numbers, and the 40 odd plus million that are on LinkedIn, really 260 connections isn't enough. And when we think about our connections on LinkedIn, we should think about them in the same way as we do email marketing. So if we were going to do an email campaign to try and get ourselves to be more visible, we wouldn't send an email campaign out to 260 connections because we know that we'd get hardly anything back off that. But what we would do is maybe send an email campaign out to maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So if our network of connections is greater, and then we're getting more visible, because obviously then you've got the spread of, it's not just your network, but somebody else might like your post and that will go into someone else's feed. And that's how we start to build our visibility when we use LinkedIn. Now, the biggest mistake that I see on LinkedIn is people using their LinkedIn profile like a CV and not like a shop. And I know I've got a picture of a pharmacy in here, and I'm not suggesting you become a pharmacy, just to be clear. I just wanted to put a picture in of a shop to make this make sense, because if I could go back to when I first started my business, I wish somebody had said to me, don't worry about having a website straight away, because you could just use your LinkedIn profile, because we're building our connections, we're becoming visible, and the aim of people looking at our kind of comments on LinkedIn and then clicking through to our profile is that we can then use our profile like a digital storefront. So at the moment, if your profile is reading like a CV, so things like, I graduated from South Downs College, and from there I worked here and then I worked my way up, that's not going to get your ideal customer to really kind of sit up and go, well, hang on a minute, I need to be talking to that person. And that's where LinkedIn brings you that really big opportunity. So if you use your profile like your digital storefront, so rather than having your CV, you use your elevator pitch in your About Me, for example, and you have a really punchy headline that, rather than saying, partnerships manager or CEO or managing director, if it says something like, I help X do Y, when you're doing your comments and you're trying to build your community on LinkedIn, it's going to stick out, and people are going to go, oh, I wonder what they do, and they'll be nosy and they'll click on it. And then what your profile is going to do is pitch them without you even being there. And that's how we then start to get organic opportunities come off the back of LinkedIn, because people, if they need your service, will then comment on your post and say, I'd love to talk more about this. Or they might drop you a message and say, oh, I just come across your comment, I really enjoyed it, and I looked at your profile and I see that you can help small businesses with their growth. It's something I'm really struggling with, like, could we meet up for a coffee? So again, another really useful thing there is to think about your LinkedIn profile at your website rather than your CV. So that About Me, focus that on your elevator pitch, which hopefully everyone knows what I mean by that. But if you don't, it's kind of, how would you say what you do if you were in an elevator for like 60 seconds? So, short, snappy, to the point. Don't make it loads and loads of text, and try and use a really strong hook at the start of your profile that will make people want to keep reading. So at the start of mine, it says something like, stop chasing clients and start attracting them. Something that's going to make people then carry on wanting to read it. So if we look at my profile, again, I'm going to ask you, Kimberly, because you're the person I've got sat here. Again, it's not hard to answer, hopefully. But when you look at my profile versus when you look at Dave's profile, what jumps out for you straight away when you look at this?
First and foremost, that you've got a profile photo, so it's very easy to identify who you're talking to. Your banner is branded, so it's very, very clear what service is also being offered behind it as well. And you've got a clear CTA there of joining the LinkedIn community.
Exactly, that's it. And again, this is where people miss an opportunity with LinkedIn. So if we think about our LinkedIn profile as a CV, people might have a lovely sunset picture in their banner, which is the top bit where you've got me kind of speaking in the middle. They might have a picture of a motivational quote or something, but this is an opportunity to get visible. So if we use our banner, and you can use the free version of Canva to do this, you don't need to pay a graphic designer, you can just go on and make your own on Canva. Make sure you have your email address and your website on there, and then again something that's going to hook the viewer to stay around and carry on reading. So mine's why pay for sales tactics that get ignored, because I want senior leaders that would be ideal customers for my corporate training to go, she's got a really good point. I've just paid a telemarketing company, £5,000-6,000 to do some telemarketing, and we didn't get anything off the back of it, or we only got a few appointments. So think about what you can have in your banner that shows that you're professional and that you have your contact details on there, because also some people can be quite lazy when they've got a need. They might see something, they want to see your email address, they don't want to click around and find it. If they can see your email, they can take it from there and they can drop you straight away an email. The other thing I've done is I've got a really punchy headline. So a lot of people use this, and that's the part underneath my name. I don't know where my mouse has gone to be able to underline it. There we go. Go back. So this part here, so award-winning LinkedIn community creator, teaching businesses to use LinkedIn and personal branding to win new clients. So it's very clear what I do. And rather than having CEO of Jodie Goodchild Limited there, I've got something that actually kind of stands out. So have a think about your profile headline as well today. If you've just got managing director or CEO, think about what you could say there that would attract your ideal customer to read more. And then we've also got these custom links. Now, you can make a custom link whether you've got paid LinkedIn or not. If you've got free LinkedIn, you can add a custom link. Try and do something that's different to what everyone else has. Visit my website is boring, and I'm sorry to be, bearer of bad news, but they see that everywhere. So try and, you can even put something like, don't click this link, because people will then click it. So something that's going to make them want to click it and stand out. Now, really quick story on this. I met somebody at a networking event. This is going back, maybe 8 months ago. And we got chatting, and I was really enjoying our conversation, but I knew that I had a meeting coming up, and this event I was at finished at 2, and my next meeting was at 2:15, and I was at least 20 minutes away from where I needed to get to. I think we've all been there. So I started to panic a little bit and think, oh God, like, how am I going to get there? But at the same time, in my brain, I was thinking, this is a really good conversation. I want to keep this going. The lady that I was talking to, and I've told Connie this story, was actually a coach. And at that point, I started thinking, I really need somebody to help me take this business to the next level. I can't do it all on my own. I think we all start out thinking, it's fine, I can do all of that. And then you gradually realize you can't, and you need a hand. So I thought, right, I'm going to remember her name. I'm going to find her on LinkedIn, and I'm going to reach out to her and see how much it is for me to have a one-to-one with her. So I got home after my meeting, typed her name in on LinkedIn, and she had a closed profile. So I don't know if you've ever come across that, but it's a profile where you can't actually you can't message somebody unless you connect with them. Unless you have an email credit, let's be honest, I think I speak for us all, we all delete emails because we know they're just sales pitches. So I had to connect with the lady in order to be able to message her. So I pressed connect, but as I pressed connect, I forgot to add a note onto it. So it just shot off, and I was like, oh God, now, couldn't find a website for her. She had no profile banner other than a picture of, I think that was actually like a sunset or something. There was no contact information when I clicked on the contact button. So there was no way for me to get hold of her. A couple of days later, I listened to a podcast that a friend of mine had recorded with a lady who was a coach. And I listened to the podcast and I thought, she is awesome. I went onto her LinkedIn profile. It was open. She had her email address literally smack bang in the middle. The button said, click here to book an appointment. Press the button, paid, and had a one-to-one with her literally that same week. 3 weeks later, that lady accepted my connection request and said, oh, I've just seen this. It was great to meet you the other day. Do you want to talk about coaching? At which point, I'm already done, dusted. I've spent the money. Somebody else has got it and it's gone. This is why it's really important to make sure that your contact information on LinkedIn is available and that your profile is open. So if you go into your settings, you'll be able to see how to make sure that your profile is open, but make sure that you've got that you've got that ability so that people can get in touch with you if they need to. Now, these are the last 90 days of my results from LinkedIn, which I wanted to share, because it's one thing saying, great, well, you've got a good profile, but what does that mean? So in the last 90 days, I've had 193,000 views on my posts. Now, I would challenge anyone in this call to tell me what marketing I can do that's not going to cost me thousands of pounds that can get that kind of views on it, because there isn't anything. You could do telemarketing all month long and you wouldn't get that many impressions. This is people physically seeing my post that I share on LinkedIn. Now, the next thing people say when I share that is, well, that's all well and good, but you don't know if any of those people are your ideal customers. I do, because you can also see that on LinkedIn, and this is all in the free version that you can see, everyone on the call can see. So from those 193,000 impressions that I've got, LinkedIn shows me the top ranking job titles. So it shows you for free the top 5. So I can see I've got founder, managing director, chief executive, owner, and co-founder. So I know that 193,000 of those impressions, a massive chunk of those are actually my ideal customers, which is why I'm in a really good position to get some good, and I do get some really warm, hot inbound leads. And it means I don't have to sell anymore, which I love, because selling is really difficult. So I'm very lucky that because of the information that I share, and my aim on LinkedIn is to educate people, because they see that I can educate them and they learn something from me. After they've seen a little, it takes 8 to 11 interactions before somebody will reach out to you. On average, in our community, it's taking 6.5. So it takes somebody 6.5 posts for my community and for me in order to generate an inbound opportunity. So that could be a comment that says, this is really interesting, I'd love to talk about this. Or it could be a message directly that says, I've just seen this awesome post about you. We've been thinking about LinkedIn, Jodie. Can you come in and train our corporate team for us? How much is it going to cost? And when those people come to you rather than you chasing them, not only is it nicer to deal with and easier to deal with, but it also means that you convert more. So what I'm kind of sharing with you now is spend less money. You only need to spend 10-15 minutes a day doing this, and you will absolutely get business from it. Now, 44% of the posts that I post on LinkedIn result in leads, which is absolutely incredible. And for those in my community, I think the numbers when we looked at the other day, there's 16 of them where they're above 20%. So 20% or above of their post will result in them getting a lead. So this is factual stuff that works. I'm not sat here, giving you all BS today. Like, these are genuine figures that are happening for real people. And you can head over to my LinkedIn and you can see the community that I work with, and they don't shy away from telling you how awesome, the stuff is that they're learning. But I wanted to share that because it shows you the kind of reach that you can get. So these are the things that I want you all to take away from today. There's lots that you can do, but this will get you started. So the first one is update your profile. Make it a profile that works for you and not against you, because you might be doing some great stuff on LinkedIn at the moment. You might encourage somebody to go and look at your profile, but then when they look at your profile, if it's kind of geared up to be a CV, you're missing an opportunity. So that's the first one. Then there's 3 simple daily actions you can take. So the first one there is engage and do it genuinely. So what we don't want is fake, comments and things on people's stuff, because that's not very nice. Think about LinkedIn like your digital networking platform. Interact with other people thoughtfully. So, go and, if you read something that interests you, pop a genuine comment on it. Or if you're doing something like today, somebody had asked me what I was up to, and I tagged Kimberly in and said, I'm actually doing a webinar with Kimberly this afternoon. So make it genuine. Then make sure you grow your network. So the next one's reach out. Every day, find 3 to 5 people who are your ideal customers and add them to your network. That's all you need to do. And you can do that when you're sat having your cuppa in the morning. Just go on your network page on your mobile. They'll probably pop up and you can just press connect and it'll send it off. Now, the big change for me and the big shift, if you're sat there thinking this is all great, but I use LinkedIn, I have been using it and I've not got any leads, I expect what you're doing wrong is you're posting to sell. So if you post on LinkedIn to educate people and you don't expect anything in return, I promise you, if you do that 3 times a week, you will get business. This is exactly what we do in my community and what I teach people to do in my corporate training. We teach people to share educational content about what they're doing and how they do things in their business. And by doing that and teaching people things, they do get leads off the back of it. So don't post to sell, post to educate. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the consistency. If you go away and do this for a week next week and then stop, it won't work. You have to do this consistently. So these actions are something you need to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And all it takes is 10 minutes a day. That's it. But if you take that 10 minutes a day, you will save yourself a shed load of your revenue in marketing, because you'll get better results from doing this than you will going to pay, you know, telemarketers or email campaigns. I can almost, you know, I almost guarantee it. So keep going with it. Don't just post and ghost. That's the thing. Little bonus tip for you here before we finish up. When you're out networking, if you're like me, I love it. I combine LinkedIn with in-person events. You've got the app on your phone. So most of us have got the LinkedIn app. So all you need to do is open your LinkedIn app. And then when you open it, you can see on the screen there, those 4 little boxes in your search bar. So if you can see that just there, if you press it in that search bar, there's 4 little dots up there. If you press that, then it brings this up, which is your QR code. So when you're doing your in-person meetings, if you're talking to someone, you're having a really good conversation, just say to them, hey, I'm trying to grow my connections on LinkedIn. I'm finding it, you know, really a challenge. So I've set myself, you know, a little target today to connect with like a couple more people. Would you be happy to connect? And I bet they'll go, yeah, no problem. And then all you need to do is press scan, and then you can scan their QR code and they'll immediately be connected to you on LinkedIn. And that's a great way to start building your network by the people that you meet. Because I don't know about you guys, but I used to go to networking events. I'd come away with like 5 business cards. I'd either lose them or forget what we'd spoken about.
I've still got drawers full of them.
yeah. I used to have, back in the day, I used to have a folder on my desk when I was in marketing, and I had like almost like Pokemon cards of like business cards of people to use. But this is a real good little tip for you there, and one that can help you. And this picture means a lot to me, which is why I wanted to share it, because this was my first ever community meeting that I did. So I did a taster session, and every single one of these people in this picture are still members of my community today. And this was back in October. And obviously now there's like 85 of them. So I like this picture because it was the first one I ever did. And it just means a lot, because I expected one person to turn up, and I had, you know, all of those, and they're all awesome people. My contact details on the screen, if you've got any questions as well, because I know that you might be sat there thinking, oh, this is great, but you know, I want to ask Jodie something. And likewise, also, please do go through Kimberly as well if there's anything you need. And yeah, there you go.
Hopefully, thanks, Jodie. I will also send out an email afterwards with Jodie's contact details, so we can get them to get a chat in with you as well. Yeah. I've been tapping away a few questions you've been going along, because I'm quite an avid user of LinkedIn, but I've still taken away bits and pieces from what you've shared with us today. But one of the things that comes up all the time with our members and with our wider network is, should they have a business page as well as a personal page? And how does that sharing of content across those 2 pages sort of resonate with the audience?
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I get that one all the time as well. So from a personal perspective, so if you're a small business owner, there's only so much you can do, right? Like we've already got, you know, admin, marketing, sales, you know, all of that kind of stuff to organize. So I started, and I had my Jodie Goodchild Limited page, and I had my personal page. I struggled to keep both up because it was kind of, you know, too much to do, and there's only so much you can do in a day. And also I found that I wanted to say the same thing on my business page as I did on my personal page. Yeah. So for a small business owner, so I'm just a one-woman band, I actually don't post on my business page. I just post from my personal page, because obviously, you know, it's got my face on it and it's me, and I just use that. However, if you're an SME or above, definitely have a business page and have a personal page and focus on both. But if you're an employee in that business, so if you own the business or you're the marketing person in that business, don't just rely on that page, because sales has dramatically changed now, and people want to build trust with a face and a person. If you're posting things from a logo of a company and a faceless page, it's really hard to build trust with people. And also with a business page, you can only invite 250 people to like your page per month. Whereas with connections on a personal page, you can invite 200 connections per week. So you can almost grow your network, you know, bigger on your personal page. But I think both are important. There's a brand in Portsmouth called Mountjoy, who are like one of the biggest brands in our city. I did a corporate workshop with them, and their MD Simon had just been resharing what the Mountjoy page was posting. When he stopped doing that and started writing his own posts, his visibility went up by 56%.
Oh wow.
Rather than just sharing what the page had shared. So that was just him, taken the time. They had an employee of the month. So rather than the page would post it.
Yeah.
But rather than just reposting it, Simon would actually take the picture,
add a bit of thought leadership
and add a bit
it.
of his thought and say, well done to the team. They've grown 56% more visibility, which is awesome. So yeah, there's two answers there. Small business, I would say you still want a page, but don't kill yourself kind of updating the two. Focus on your personal brand. SME and above, you do want your business page, but also you want to get your, you want people, you want you to be posting rather than just relying on that page.
And how does it work, particularly with an SME that might have 5 to 10 employees, possibly more, depending on the size of the business? How does it work in getting the employees to engage with LinkedIn through their personal pages?
That's a really good question as well. So I'm really passionate about how marketing has actually evolved, and I'm not sure if anyone else, I'm sure you can, people watching this can relate, but traditionally and historically, lead generation and marketing were done by sales and marketing. And that was the only team that were involved in that. You'd have maybe another 20, 30, or in case of the company that I was at, another 100 employees, but there was only a very small team that would do lead generation and visibility. The beautiful thing about 2025 and the digital kind of era that we're now in is that sales is something that anyone can do, because it's just about being visible. And one of the things that Daniel Priestley says is that personal branding is not the future, it's now. Personal branding is a big thing. So if you're in a company and you're thinking, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want, why should I help out my employer? Yes, you are helping your employer, but you're also helping yourself, because you're building your personal brand and you're also helping your company become more visible. So in terms of a company getting their employees on board, one, it can make their job easier. I've done cold calling, I've done business development, and it's tough. You can just spend, I'm not saying, for a second that you don't have to do all that, but if you combined all of those things like cold calling and emailing with using LinkedIn, it would just make it so much less stressful for employees, and they'd enjoy it more. The opportunities would be hotter and they'd close at a higher rate, and they do close at a higher rate. So getting involved not only helps make your job easier, but it also boosts the visibility, tenfold. If you've got 10 people posting on LinkedIn and growing their networks, imagine the amount of impressions. If you can just get 5,000 or 6,000 impressions a week from one person, and you've got 5 people on, that's like 25,000 impressions, if I've done the maths right. Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the math.
I was just like quickly under the table. That's like massive visibility, and you wouldn't get that from an email campaign. And if you did, you'd have to pay for it. You'd have to pay hundreds of pounds for it. So yeah, it's really important, I think, to get, if HR are on LinkedIn, get them showing the new starters that are joining, welcoming them to the team, get them sharing the pictures and videos of them doing a training session with the team on something they're learning, get your MD on LinkedIn talking about, why did they start the business? What's their vision for the next 6-12 months? What's their why for running the business? What are they doing to grow it? What can they teach other people? Get customer success on LinkedIn. What customers are you working with? What's all the good news that they can share? What's gone well? What projects are you working on? There's literally not a job title I can think of that wouldn't contribute something to LinkedIn that people would find interesting.
And I love that being specific to the roles as well, because you get a complete oversight of the company then in areas that the public wouldn't usually get an insight to. So you can really get a feel for a company that you might then go on to choose to work with because of the culture and the ethos that they generate, not just they've got a pretty logo. They're the first one that came up on Google.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's not just about lead generation. Yes, that's one thing from it. The other thing is that visibility. You've got corporate and social responsibility in there. If you're out doing work with charity and people can see that, and then somebody's looking for a new role and they see all this amazing stuff you're doing, and they see that you train your staff all the time, that you do all these fun trips, they're going to come to you and say, have you got any jobs going? And then you're also going to save yourself thousands on recruitment fees as well. Yeah. So, it's an absolute no-brainer.
And when you talk about impressions, can you give us a bit of an idea about what exactly that means?
Yes, and I should have probably done that close to the start. So that's a really good question. So impressions are the volume of people that see your post on LinkedIn. So it's the volume of people that see it. They don't necessarily stop it, but it's the people that will see it pass their feed. So your job when you're writing content is to make it stand out so that people want to read it. If it's, reels and reels of text, there's no spaces and there's loads of emojis, people are going to go bang, buy it. But if you hook something that, here's what I learned from X, people are probably going to stick around and look at it. And then there's lots of little things you can do to make them stick around. So one little tip, for example, is putting your link in the comments rather than in your post, because LinkedIn want you to stay on their platform. So if you're putting your link in your post and you're encouraging people to leave LinkedIn, then you're not going to get as many impressions as you will putting in a post. There's loads of little tips
Guilty.
like that. Sometimes it's good to put it in there, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I will put a link in the post, but mixing it up is good as well, because it might, get you noticed more.
Which also led me to my next question, which is, it's almost like we planned it, but we haven't. But what sort of content do you recommend people to post? Because there's quite a lot of diversity. Some people, like there's a nutritionist that I follow, and she posts photos of her lunches every day, which is always like really drawing me in and inspiring me to make lunch. Although I'll confess I had cereal today, so not quite inspired. But should there be a mix between plain text, video and image, or is there one content type that generally performs better?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. And it's one thing that I find people really struggle with, because they really overthink it. I don't know if you saw my post that I shared today, but I was watching a TikTok last night, and somebody was talking about, back in 2007 when we'd go out with an actual camera. Do you remember that? And I posted about it today, and I said, look, if we go back to like 2007, we'd go on a night out with a real camera. We'd take about 40 photos, probably one of which would actually be any good. And we would create a whole album on Facebook of those photos, and we'd dedicate the album to it. And we wouldn't blink about worrying about what we were doing. Yet when it comes to LinkedIn, people really panic because I think they overthink it. So people really struggle with it. But I think it's because they look at it too big. So they're following Stephen Bartlett, Daniel Priestley, the guy, what's his name, that owns Richard Branson, that owns Virgin. So they're thinking, well, they're not going to want to listen to little old Jodie from the small island of Pompey. But you need to be thinking about it from the community that you're in, so the area. So I don't think about, everyone else from, far and wide. I just think about the people that I know that are in Portsmouth. And I also just don't overthink it. If I want to share something within reason, I'll share it. My general rule is, if you wouldn't say it in the office, don't post it on LinkedIn. But everyday experiences make great content. So for example, you and I could post today about, great webinar, with CH4B today, lots of chatting about LinkedIn. We're just sharing our social side of our business, and that's all it is. It's social media. We probably don't think twice before we upload a picture of our dog on Instagram on a walk or whatever. So just try and, I'm not saying, I'm not saying like, don't think about it. Obviously you do want to think about it, but try not to overthink it. I was talking to somebody in my community the other day, and no, it was actually a client. So I was doing some work with Portsmouth City Council, and one of the ladies in that session was such a big personality, and she was awesome, and she was very funny, and just naturally she's already great at LinkedIn because she just talks how she talks. And the other lady said, I want to be more like Steph, but I don't know how to do that. And I said, well, why don't you think as if you were Steph when how would Steph write that post? She was like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea actually. So sometimes you could also take yourself out of the equation, and rather than thinking that it's you writing it, think about how your friend would write it or something. But just don't overthink it, just post it. That's what I say. If what's going on in your business that's going well, it could be that you've had a great meeting with somebody today, so you might want to share a little selfie of you with them with a coffee. It could be you've got an opinion or something that will help somebody, so you might film a little video to go with it. But try and mix it up. Video content is doing really well at the moment, but also from the stats in my community, selfies perform really well. If I look at Bev, who I mentioned to you when we were chatting before this, who's almost like my star member of my community, she does HR consultancy. She has, some of her posts get 52,000 views just on one post. And she just posts, information about HR, but she'll just pop a selfie of her at the bottom of it. And it could be just her smiling, or, her with a cup of coffee or whatever. So just mix it up. But ultimately, you've got to test and, see what works for you, and go back into your impressions when you've posted, go back and look at last week and see what performed best. And you might look at a post and go, oh, when I was, again, one of the members of my community posted a post last week of an apple and a banana saying, God, I'm really trying to lose weight, but isn't this just boring? And it had like 60,000 impressions. So it's a bit different, but also it doesn't matter, because loads of those people would have gone and clicked on her profile to look at what she did. And they would have got pitched, because they would have seen what the company did when they looked at the profile, but they wouldn't realize that's what had happened. So Yeah, hopefully that that helps. I could talk your ear off on this for a whole day.
I love it. I love it. And what's with your experience? How does AI support that content generation? Is it something that people should be using? Is it something we should steer away from? I know there's a big thing. I was reading a few posts this morning, and what do they call it? It's the M dash. And all the grammar police are out about that, and that's how you identify that a post has been written by AI. I used them long before they were popular.
Yeah.
But there's a particular one that ChatGPT generates that makes it. So should we be using AI tools to help with content generation, and is it appropriate to support? Should we be editing it? What's your views on it?
Yeah, and that's a really good question as well. And the thing with AI is it's there to help you, it's not there to do it for you.
Yeah.
So if you do use ChatGPT, absolutely no shame. Like I use it. Like I have an idea for something and I might not quite be able to articulate how I want to say it.
Yeah.
So I might say, can you help me? Like, how could I make this educational, for example? Or, can you spell check this post? So I encourage people to use it as a help, but not to do it for them. So what you don't want to do is go on to ChatGPT and say, I'm a HR consultant, write me, 10 posts to share next week about HR. Because also that's not going to stand out. You've got your own personal experience and you should use your own thoughts and feelings. But if you need a bit of a hand, so you could say to ChatGPT, I really want to talk today about why CEOs should be using LinkedIn to help them with their personal branding, but I'm not quite sure how I could talk about that. Could you give me some inspiration? And it will give you something, and then you can kind of almost look at it and change it a little bit, as long as you're doing that, but just don't copy and paste, all of those exciting announcement. And we're thrilled to, if you wouldn't say that when you're talking, don't say it using ChatGPT. I was having coffee with somebody on Monday, and she said when she first started on LinkedIn, she almost had this fake corporate personality that she used. And when she'd meet people, they'd go, "Oh, I thought you'd be a bit posh actually, because you used words like, X, Y, Z." And she, she was just a Pompey girl, and she didn't. So don't, keep your voice and use it to help you, but don't use it to do it for you.
Totally. For my sins, I write the way I speak. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's
yeah, your content is awesome. You the version of you that you are. Well, don't put yourself down. It's great. The version of you that you get on LinkedIn is the version of you that you get when you talk to you, and that's exactly how it should be. People shouldn't meet you and go, "Oh, I thought you would be different." Because also, if you're using ChatGPT, not you, but this is like using other people as an example, and they're not using their own insights. If you then meet somebody in the real world and they want to have a conversation with you on that, and you've got no idea what we're talking about, that can be really dangerous because it's going to make you look really bad. So just use it as a help. Don't use it to do it for you, would be the advice I'd give.
And I think the last one that I've tacked down, so I know I've grilled you quite a lot as we've got to the end here. Right. What is the best practice in finding people to connect with, and should you accept all the connection requests that come in? Because sometimes, I know certainly every day I jump on and there's several connections of requests in there, and sometimes I'll just go through and accept them all, but they're never going to be people that we can support through CH4B. They're just almost like an automated swipe out.
Yeah. So to answer the first one first, which was how do you find people? When you open LinkedIn, if you just go into the search bar, there's lots of different ways that you can find people. So if your ideal customer was a managing director, for example, in that search bar, you can just type in managing director and press return. And then when you do that, it will bring up a list of managing directors. At the top of that, along the top of the screen, you'll see all filters. So what you can then do is start using those free filters to filter by location, an industry, for example. So on the right hand side, you'll see a little button and it will say all filters. If you click that, you could specifically choose, let's say it was manufacturing managing directors, you can choose manufacturing, and then you can also add in multiple locations. So if you wanted to connect with people that were in, Portsmouth, Havant, Waterlooville, whatever, you can select those locations as well. So when you do that, it will bring up who you should connect with, and you can just go through that list and obviously start adding them to your network. So that's the first one. The second question was, remind me, it was
about incoming connection requests.
Yes.
And whether or not you should blanketly accept all of them to grow your community, or if you should be more selective about those that you accept.
Think about it the same way that you think about Facebook. you know, if somebody added you and you'd never spoken to them before, you'd probably go, oh, I don't know who that is, and you'd decline it. Or if somebody sends you a connection request and, you know, they're somebody that you know through someone else or somebody that you kind of roughly know, you'd accept it. So, you know, with LinkedIn, just treat it with an air of caution. Obviously, check their profile first before accepting it. Make sure they're not one of these, you know, I help coaches and consultants sign 50 million, you know, pounds worth of business a day or something, because you get loads of those. They try and pitch slap you the minute you accept it. So do your kind of checks first. But just have a look at their profile. If they look like the kind of person that you enjoy seeing their content, then accept it. But also, if you accept somebody and then you wish you hadn't, you can just go on and then unconnect with them. The last thing I'll say is don't just connect with your ideal customers. You also want to build a community, because, you know, if I think about our connection, you know, we are great because you will know people that could be my ideal customer, but you're personally not my ideal customer. So we want to build our network with a mixture. You probably want 80% of your ideal customers and maybe 20% of, you know, people that you enjoy their content and that you can read it and that would almost be a champion for your brand if you weren't in the room. So if somebody posts something and says, oh, I need some LinkedIn training, who should I speak to? I know that you would comment straight away and go, oh, you should speak to Jodie, like she's awesome, because you know me. So it's not just who you know, it's also who knows you. So it's not just your ideal customers you should connect with.
Amazing. I think I've grilled you enough for today, but by all means, if anybody watching has got any questions that we haven't thrown at Jodie today, feel free to put them in the comments on YouTube, and I will send round an email afterwards so you can send them direct as well, and we can get you set up with a one-to-one. Or in the meantime, you can get your LinkedIn revolution and coffee stain it like I have and go through it. But thank you so much for your time today, Jodie. It's been really insightful, and I'm going to go and update the website link on my profile, because you picked that out straight away and I knew you would.
I love it. Yeah, if anyone, please also don't feel like there's a silly question. I say that to people all the time. Like, I'm really approachable. You know, there's no question is a silly question. So please don't feel like you can't step forward and ask. You know, I'd be more than happy to, you know, answer a question, or if you've, you know, wrote a new headline or something, you want an opinion, you know, I'm more than happy to give that to you. So yeah, it was really good to chat, and hopefully people have found this really helpful. Let us know if you have. Please comment and tell us, because it'll keep, you know, it keeps me doing these.
And maybe do a post afterwards, and you can tag us both on LinkedIn. There we go.
Yes.
There's an action to take away.
Yeah, and if we're not connected, come and connect.
There we go. Well, thank you again, Jodie. I'm sure we'll chat soon, and I'll go and pop a post on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao for now.